Hello, my name is Jack Heineke, and today's devotional is being taken from the book of Mark 13, verses 7 through 8. This also was posted around the beginning of the Ukrainian war with the Soviet Union with Russia. This was posted on February 26. Yes, it was posted February 26. Mark 13, 7 through 8. When you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be alarmed, frightened, troubled. These things must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise up against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places, there will be famines. These things are the beginning of the birth pangs of the intolerable anguish and suffering. Jesus had just said that the stones of the walls of the temple will not stand, that they will all come down. 3 of his disciples asked him privately, what will be the signs that we should be on the lookout for that will determine when all of this will begin? And this is where these verses pick up, and they refer to 70 AD when the temple was destroyed by the Romans. But biblical prophecy is not always limited to a one-time event, but can refer to events, more than one throughout history. Jesus will go on to talk in these verses about the abomination of desolation taking place in the temple, which clearly is an event that hasn't occurred yet. That event will require the Antichrist entering the temple to be worshipped as being God. The temple will have to be rebuilt, which is now in the process of happening, in order for that event to happen. Right now, the temple is only a wall in Jerusalem. Standing on the temple grounds is what's considered to be what you would see in the pictures of that area of the Dome of the Rock, which is a Muslim mosque. So there are issues going on in that part of the world, which you have differing religions essentially. You have Judaism, you have Islam, and you have Christianity, all pointed at the same direction of this place, and all of them laying claim to that place. So there's a lot going on with all of that. But these are part of the prophecies, some that have been fulfilled and some that are yet to be fulfilled. So as I said earlier, that temple, in order for the Antichrist to enter the temple to be worshipped as being God, then the temple has to be rebuilt. And like I also said, you can look into it, you can Google it. This has been going on for years, where they've been preparing items to take into the temple that will be part of the temple worship that will go on, that will take place. And the reason I'm confident in saying that it will take place is that God said it will take place. Not because I say it's going to. I'm just in agreement with God and His Word. And in His Word, it's very clear that these are events that will happen. But it's not happening right now. That's an important distinctive point as we go through this devotional today. Throughout history, since the times of Jesus, there's always been wars and rumors of war. That is in itself nothing new. But what is new is what is happening in the Ukraine right now. An unprovoked invasion of a country with an unprepared military by a much stronger country that has a stronger, better prepared military has not happened since World War II. This hasn't happened in my lifetime. I was born in 1957, well after the end of World War II. But here we are. The actual war is on, and there are rumblings of tensions between China and Taiwan that have increased since Russia invaded Ukraine. Putin has made nuclear threats towards any country that tries to stop him. Putin is a madman who is ashamed of the Soviet Union's diminished legacy and now appears to be using his power to change this legacy. His sanity has been in question because he's behaving as the schoolyard bully who has bigger weapons at his disposal, and he seems bent, completely bent, on using them because he's a punk. He's a sinner like you and I. And just like you and I, He wants to be God. What's different than you and I is he's in a position of exercising tremendous authority and literally destroying people's lives and homes, and families, and children, women. He's a dangerous man with a lot of things at his disposal that make him very dangerous. So right now, this anti-God, anti-life punk has the attention of the entire world, and the world is afraid of what this man will do, what this will all lead to. Jesus, who knows us better than we know ourselves, knows that our first response to these events are to be afraid. Now, I'm like everyone else. I fear what is happening there, that could happen here. The last thing I want to do is be driven out of my home with my children and try to be out on the road somewhere finding some safe haven. That's an insane possibility. I feel fearful for the Ukrainians who are living and dying because of the actions of Putin. They're over there and I'm over here. I feel fearful that they will escalate into World War III. I look at my kids and I feel fear for their future. So I need to be reminded by God not to fear. I'm just like anyone else. These events take place and my first response is usually fear. Not mind-numbing, sitting in my chair, not able to get out off the couch kind of fear, but just I need reassurance from God that He is who He is, and that like people like Putin are really not in control. And they're not in control of me. They're not in control of my life. They're not in control of my destiny. God is. And if God determines that they have some say-so over all those things, then that's God's say-so. Not mine, and not theirs, by the way. And so I turn to His Word, which has been alive and active, sharper than any two-edged sword, that separates soul and spirit, that determines the thoughts and the attitudes of man's heart, to put my heart and mind in the right place, which is with God. The Bible does those things. Being reminded of what God tells us throughout the Bible sharpens us, because His Word is alive, it's active. It separates soul and spirit to get to the very core of our very being. You can't get any more to the core than that. And it shows us our thoughts and our attitudes, and then God says, let me take and put my attitude in you. Let me put my heart in you. Let me put my mind in you. And then when that happens, I'm in a place of peace. Because God is not freaking out over what's happening in the world. He never has, and He never will, because He knows it all anyway. These wars, these rumors of wars, they must happen. The Bible tells us that these things must happen. And let me tell you, there's a part of me that when I see these things happening, I go through a range of emotions, and another one that I go through is excitement. Because as I watch prophecy being fulfilled before my very eyes, I know the end of the story. I know what this all leads to. And that excites me when I see prophecy being fulfilled. What I'm seeing is that, yep, God said this is what's going to happen. Here it is happening. What will it all lead to? Those are the fears that we have. But God showed us what it all leads to. The problem is what happens between now and then. It's not going to be good for people who aren't walking with God. It's not going to be good for people who don't know who God is. That's why we need to know who God is, so that we can warn them. What they do with the warnings are up to them. But they need to be warned. The world needs to be warned. The Bible is filled with warnings to get our attention. Just like when we're taking our child and crossing them across a busy street, we don't let them run out there all on their own. No, we hold them by the hand and we carefully watch the traffic ourselves. And then we take the children across the street when it's safe to do so. God the Father is exactly the same way with us. These wars, these rumors of wars, they must happen. But here's what's important: the end is not yet. Other nations will rise up against other nations. Earthquakes, famine, floods, all these things must take place. But the end is not yet. For these things are the beginnings of birth pangs that will usher in even greater suffering and anguish. Sorry to be the bearer of that bad news. I truly, truly am. But the reason that all of these things usher in even greater suffering and anguish isn't just because God says so. It's because this is where sin pushes its inevitable end towards. Sin digs in its heels. Sin demands its way until it is eliminated. Man, by the way, obviously is not ready to eliminate it within themselves, even if we could do it ourselves. Because man rejects God. Man is an antichrist who rejects Christ. Everyone who rejects Christ is, in a sense, an antichrist. They're against God. You can't receive the gift of grace and be against Christ at the same time. It doesn't work that way. And there will be greater suffering and greater anguish than anything we can even begin to imagine. And I don't wish that upon anyone. I wish everyone would be saved. I wish everyone would heed the call. But I'm powerless over who does and who doesn't. God prophesied all of this in His Word. So do not be surprised or misled that these things won't happen, for if you know His Word, you are aware of these prophecies. And the reason why all this misery will happen, as I said, isn't just because God said it will. To reiterate it again, it's because sin and the enemies of God will dig in their heels until God steps back in and will defeat all of His enemies. This is what sin demands, and sin and his enemies will not give up, not until they're forced to. And the only solution to sin and these enemies is faith in Jesus Christ. That's why I believe in Jesus, and I pray that you have believed in Him already, or that you will believe in Him sooner than later. I pray that you have an awesomely blessed day today.